Hello again everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now I know everyone's all very excited about the up and coming international month-long window coming to the Southern Hemisphere, but before we take a look into what's going to be happening there, we have a small matter of this last round before the international break of Super Rugby that happened a couple of days ago in the round of number 14, where we had 8 matches taking place. So we have a couple of teams on the bye, and this round it is the Reds and the Sharks who will be missing from actions. Let's take a look at the remaining sides, the games they played out. An amazing weekend of rugby. To be completely fair, it really did set the scene remarkably for the international scene coming up this coming month of June. Can't wait for that to get underway, but let's have a look back at last weekend's Super Rugby action for round 14. We kicked things off in New Zealand up at Westpac Stadium in Wellington, where the Hurricanes, in a replay of last year's grand final, were up against the Highlanders, and this promised a lot, and it really did develop into the match that everyone really dreamed of. It was a tight contest with a lot of All Black trial matchups between the players as well. Plenty in the centres, the fly halves as well, the scrum halves for that matter, even in the forward pack. There were some good battles between potential All Black candidates for the up-and-coming internationals. And it was a really tight contest too. Both sides really brought the A-game as well, which I thought was fantastic because the Hurricanes hadn't had the best of season. They've been a bit wishy-washy and were at the bottom of the pack when it comes to that tight New Zealand conference, but they really did come to the party and seemed to get stronger as the match went on. The highlight of this game, and something that has been absolutely smashed in media here, is the Sopoaga chip over the top, turning his back on the defence and kicking over his head. Absolute extraordinary scenes from the fly half to do something like that and create the opportunity that it did. The Highlanders really are full of new and fresh ideas, but ultimately it wasn't enough to stop Ardie Savea and his Hurricanes from stealing it very, very late over the Highlanders. Still though, an area of note that I've written down once again is Beauden Barrett's kicking off the tee. Ultimately, his last kick that missed did result in the try to Ardie Savea, so, you know, you take your opportunities from your mistakes, but it's a concern, especially if he's pulling on the black jersey, has to really work against him surely. The final score in this one amazingly went to the Hurricanes, 27-20 over the Highlanders. Now, my pick was 29-12, the Highlanders to get the win, so I pick up 0 points, a big fat donut, to open my weekend, and let's be fair, it didn't get much better. Over to Allianz Stadium where we went, where the Waratahs, who had been just chugging away in their season, were up against a team that have been as high as the sky will allow. That is the Chiefs, who were just blockbusting through their year not so long ago. This one, though, was a tri-fest and a battle at the same time. At halftime, these two sides were extremely close. It was just 13-17, with the Waratahs having a slender 4-point lead, and most fans of the Chiefs would have thought, yeah, we're still in this match, no question about it. The Waratahs, who knows what Waratahs second half will show up, but to be fair on this matchup, the Chiefs really did throw away too many gifts to the Waratahs. Intercepts, errors when they were close to the line, and just really didn't play anywhere near a complete performance. Mistake-ridden game from the Chiefs as well, that they'll be utterly disappointed. But the Waratahs, to their credit, took the chances that they were given. The intercepts resulted in tries. The mistakes resulted in points. It's that sort of thing that determines a decent side into a competition-winning side, and we know that deep down, the Waratahs have that in their locker. A bit of a downside to this match, I thought, was the referee, who was often persuaded by what the crowd had to say in this game. Ultimately, the right calls may or may not have been made. That was irrelevant. But I really do get annoyed when I watch games of rugby and the referee really doesn't make up his mind. He's too persuasive. In this instance, in this Waratahs Chiefs match, the one that really stood out was, if you watch the game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't even remember what it was. A knock-on or something that was called off the Waratahs, and the Chiefs obviously get the scrum put in. There was an injury break at the same time, and it was put up on the big screen. The referee saying, no, look, I can't change my decision. I'm sticking with what my original decision was, irrelevant of what's going on the big screen. The injury break continued. The pressure from the crowd, the pressure from the Waratahs players continued. And again, despite what was the right decision or what the wrong decision was, I really think a referee should go, okay, I've seen this, I'm going to change my decision. Or you say, no, that's my decision and that's it. What really gets on my goat is when they say, no, I'm not looking at it further, and then, after further pressure, change their mind. That's what really irritates me. You're either on it or you're off it. You either make the call or you make the other call. You're one or the other. Don't be persuaded. Don't change your mind. That is the decision, right or wrong. It really just gives the players too much power to influence the referee. They need to be conclusive. They need to be decisive right from the outset. Whether they're going to look at an option or not and stick with their original call. That really annoyed me, and it kind of soured that game. But the Waratahs were fantastic, and they shut that game out, despite the referee saying either way or the other. Now, an interesting stat from this game was it was just the third Australian win versus 20 matches against New Zealand opponents this season. Now, take that in. That is an amazing stat that just shows how bad, let's say, the Australian sides have been this season. 3 out of 20, that's not a stat or a record that they'll take very proudly at all. So full time, that one was 45-25, the Waratahs with a big win, massive win, huge win over the Chiefs. My score prediction was 43-16. I thought the Chiefs would absolutely do them in that one, but it didn't turn out that way. And again, a big fat donuts for my tally of the weekend. And things didn't get any better as the weekend continued. We made our way to Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. That stadium is an absolute tongue twister if you try to say it fast, where the Kings were hosting the Jaguars. Now, I spoke about before this match how I was really starting to lose the faith in what the Jaguars are capable of. I know what they can do, but what they've delivered this season is far from that. And once again, they really showed why I'm losing the faith in the side. This was the ultimate lesson on how to lose a game of rugby. And there's a real simple explanation to what happened. Ill discipline. That's it. Simply poor discipline by the Jaguars. 2 red cards. 2 red cards. And a yellow card. This is just dreadful from the Jaguars. 12 men they had for a portion of the game. 12 men. Let's just sink in how bad that is. How often have we ever seen a team, at the top level of club or international rugby be down to 12 men? And with 2 permanently off as well, up against 15. I just cannot believe how that went. But we've got to talk about the positives here. The Kings scored 19 points in the final 10 minutes to shut the Jaguars out of this game. I really couldn't believe this result. I just sat in stun as I just looked at what was happening before my very own eyes. Like, don't get me wrong here. I don't think the Kings are a bad side. I enjoy watching them with ball in hand. I think they're a decent attacking side. Their defence, as I've spoken of before, is horribly bad. But the Kings attacking is quite entertaining. The Jaguars, immensely frustrating, and they just gave another horrid display that will have many people and fans of their own team shaking their head, wondering where this has gone wrong for the Argentinian franchise. The Kings won that one 29-22. Yes, it was still close, but really, 12 men losing to the Kings, it's not good enough, Jaguars. It's not good enough. My pick again was Jaguars 33-17. I don't know if I can really back them again after that performance. and I pick up another big donut for another torrid display for my picks. Next up, we made our way to Eden Park, the Garden of Eden in Auckland, where the Blues were hosting the high-flying Crusaders, and all the talk on the Crusaders being the top side, competition favourites, all that jazz had absolutely no effect whatsoever on the Blues. And I'm going to be completely fair about this, like I try to always be. The Blues were the better side throughout this matchup. Overall, I think the Blues deserved to win this game more than the Crusaders. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say, I don't think about that whatsoever. I don't like that comment at all. But I really think the Blues were the better side over that whole portion of the match. I think the only real difference between these two sides was the upper echelon players that are in these two sides. The Blues really only have a few big name players that they can rely on for big game moments. The Crusaders, however, they're stacked with them. And they always seem to have that one or two players that step up and just take that game to the next level. And once again, that is what happened. I think Jerome Kaino was brilliant for the Blues. He just guides that forward pack and makes ultimately some average players look very, very good in that forward pack. As for the Crusaders, Richie Mo'unga, I think he's really come on this season. He has really developed amazingly as becoming one of the real stars in the number 10 jumper, and he's got to be looking forward. And those guys that have been selected in the All Black squad, I mean, the likes of Barrett, amazing with ball in hand, but does he have to rethink about what number jersey he wears when his goal kicking isn't up to scratch? Maybe the All Blacks need to think about other kicking options if they want to keep persisting with Barrett. But that's another topic for another day. Richie Mo'unga is what we're talking about here. The fact that he's playing amazing rugby and he needs to be looking further on, developing, and he could really become something special for New Zealand rugby as well. So the Crusaders did actually come out on top of that one by a very slender margin. Like I said, the Blues really should have won that game. 26-21, Crusaders getting the win over the Blues. Now my pick was 37-22, so pretty close on the Blues side of things, but a bit off there on the Crusaders. I still grabbed 1 point for the head-to-head result, correct my way. Next up, we're off to Canberra, where the Brumbies were hosting the Sunwolves from Japan, and this is either going to go one of two ways. It was either going to be a close attacking game of rugby, or the Sunwolves might not get a look in whatsoever, and that's exactly what happened. All points led to saying that this match might go the way it did. You can't even really talk about the Sunwolves being committed and passionate into the game and never giving up the fight despite the minutes on the clock, but it really didn't go that way at all. The Brumbies just smashed them. Simple and pure. No beating around the bush on this. It was just class. Brumbies destroying the Sunwolves, much like we've seen way back in round one where they destroyed the Hurricanes. I think we've seen a replay of that when they absolutely pummeled the Sunwolves, who had no answer at all. They really didn't even get into the match at all. They hardly had any attacking ball. It was all just bad news for the Sunwolves, who will be going into the international break. Well, not feeling too well about that match whatsoever, but so far this season's been okay. The Brumbies made them look pretty average though. 66 points to 5. That was the final score. The Sunwolves were absolutely cooked and done. By the time they got that 5 points, it was really just one-way demolition. And there's really, what do you say? The Brumbies were just far too good. They guided, directed, and smashed every which way. So my prediction for that match was the Brumbies to take the win, 31-15. I thought it might be an alright match for 40-50 minutes, but didn't even get that far, and I still grabbed 1 point though for getting the winner correct. Okay, making our way over to Newlands in Cape Town for the Stormers versus the Cheetahs, and this one surprised me. I thought it was quite a nice, tight, testy, rather aggressive battle between these two sides. The Stormers, well, ultimately, and come the end of the day, they were gifted some easy, soft chances, a couple of tries that in the end made the big difference to just keeping the Cheetahs at arm's length. Now, the thing is that surprised me the most was how well the Cheetahs actually played in this game. They were never out of the match. They're always there within striking distance of the Stormers, and I really thought the Stormers might have put them away a bit better, a bit earlier, And if it wasn't for a few mistakes on the Cheetahs, giving away intercept tries, things like that, they could have maybe made something out of this match. Ultimately, 7 points was only the margin between these two teams. The Stormers, they would have been hoping to get 5 points from that game. The Cheetahs, they would have been hoping to find something to reignite their season, which has dwindled out to a bit of a pizza at the end. But the Stormers, I think they got plenty to work on over the international break for those not involved with their national side. They're a good team, but they're not really performing at their potential. They're getting the results though, and that is good for them, but I just can't see them at this stage reaching the level that the Lions are sitting at so far in Super Rugby. So the final score there was 31-24 to the Stormers. My prediction was 28-9, so miles away on the margin there, but still 1 point for picking the Stormers to pick up the win. Okay, off to Loftus first field we go for the Bulls at home against the Lions. And this was another surprise result as well. Maybe not for the winner, but the margin was very surprising. I thought this might have been the margin in some other earlier matches, but not this one. I thought this would be very close, but you've got to say the Lions' attack is just absolutely electric, absolutely outstanding. And guys like Mapu, Creel, de Klerk, fantastic players, and they've really come up and stood up for the Lions, who just look so good this season. They were just phenomenal. And also we spoke of the missing number 10 out in Yantes, who wouldn't be playing that matchup, but we got another one standing up, a name we know well, Boshoff coming straight in, filling that void at 10, and we know he's a great goal kicker, and he has a decent enough direction to guide around this very talented Lions backline. And at the end of the day, there's only one thing that mattered, and that is the first loss at home for the Bulls in 2016. And it wasn't close either. 56 points to 20. That is right. 36-point margin. A big one for the Lions. My pick was 24-18. Lions to take the win there too. So I still grab 1 point for my prediction. Final match of the weekend now, and it's back to Australia on Sunday afternoon, Amy Park, where the Rebels are up against the Force, and this is one I thought could really end the Super Rugby period with a bit of a whimper, but again, I was surprisingly happy with how this one kind of panned out, better than I predicted at least, they'll put it that way. And the break should start off, with everyone having fond memories now of how Super Rugby was, because this is a pretty big weekend of matches, of results, of everything as well. Now the matchup, it was quite a topsy-turvy matchup as well. Both sides having genuine chances and opportunities throughout the game to assert their dominance, but really the other took it away just as they started to get going. It was an interesting matchup, the way it panned out, with both sides really toing and froing. One man that stood out was Naivalu for the Rebels, getting a couple of tries and looking quite dangerous as well. And this Rebels team that's almost, tipping on the side of becoming a decent team. I think the next year or two could be interesting times for the Rebels, the way they've played this year. For the Force, they were always there. They were always in it. They were always within a score or two of being back in the lead. And the Rebels, well, they just had enough to shut them out. A bit of a concern, though, for Mike Harris, who went down with an injury. A bit of a concern maybe for Australia. His goal kicking, his versatility is something that they may well have planned to put to use in the international break. How long he's out for, not too sure just yet. But either way, a decently experienced player as well that can fit in a team anywhere. Great bench player as well for the Wallabies, who may see some time on the sidelines. Back to this match, the Rebels and Force, though. A good way to end this portion of the competition. A topsy-turvy, end-to-end kind of matchup where both sides had plenty of chances. In the end, the Rebels did pull it out of their hats, 27-22 over the Force. My pick was 29-17, so only a couple of points out either way, and I grabbed the bonus points to get 2 for that matchup, which is brilliant because I was really struggling to put anything away after 8 matches. That Rebels Force game, and another one that really did surprise the way it came out with. Alright, so that wraps up for our 8 matches from round 14. It is international rugby time. So this Super Rugby review show will be having a bit of a break for the next month, but we will be replacing that with some international selections, some previews on the matches, and of course look back on what has happened after each weekend of matches as well. So you can stick around and stay tuned for that coming up next week sometime before the first round of internationals get underway. But to wrap today's episode up, we'll be having a look at my picks and who come close to getting near my selections. I picked up 5 head-to-head results right, plus that bonus point for the Rebels and the Force game. That is 6 points for me. You can see on my tally, which should be on screen right now. The closest to come towards me was the reviewer who picked up 5 points for his picks. Amazingly, didn't get that bonus point that would have made us dead even. Still another good effort from the reviewer who is proving his picks aren't too shabby if you're after some sneaky tactics for the weekend of rugby. Thanks to everyone who put in their picks as well. Some decent nudges coming in from you all over the last few weekends as well. The picks seem to be getting better and better as each week goes on. Again, this series will return after the international breaks. Hope to see you all back for that, and I hope to see you all at the international preview of next weekend's games. But thank you all for tuning in and watching for now. Hope you're enjoying the Super Rugby content and soon to be international content as well. But until next time, thanks for watching and take care.